crumbling at this time.
I still think the only team who can beat Arsenal is Arsenal themselves. I think that the gap between... I just don't think City will get enough points in over what remains of the season, given the wobble that City are having at the moment. I don't think City will finish the season especially strongly, and therefore I think the biggest single threat to Arsenal is Arsenal panicking, really. So I think so much of what happens in the title race from here will depend on whether or not Arsenal will, are they going to get really worried about their position? Are they going to get worried about their performances? Or are they going to be able to keep on grinding away in a fairly consistent way, which I think they are doing at the moment. There's obviously, the results are gone a little bit up and down recently, but I'm not sure how much the performance levels have changed. And if they can just keep that mental stability, keep that consistency, and not get too wrapped up in it, then I think that will probably be enough for them. I don't think they have too much to worry about in terms of City.
And you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Victor Gyökeres.
Oh, here we go.
I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous now. He's just on a different level, technically, to the rest of the team. Yes, the other players like him and want him to see well. You can see that in the way that he's sort of almost celebrated in midweek, and yeah, everyone's cheering. But honestly, it's like they're doing it as he's a mascot. I mean, he is not good enough technically for that Arsenal team.
Let me put this to you then, John.
It's becoming actually embarrassing.
No, but let me
£64 million. Yes, he works hard. Yes, he occupies defenders. But Thomas,
you can't underestimate that, can you?
Yes, you can.
That's the basic, isn't it?
Honestly, it's ridiculous.
Okay, let me put this to you then.
They are
top of the league.
He's not scoring
They're top
enough
of the
goals.
league by
it's
7
like
points.
They're playing with 10 men.
They're top of the league by 7 points. They're clear at the top of the Champions League group. They've got 1 foot in the final of the Carabao Cup. They're into round 4 of the FA Cup. Can all of that genuinely be achieved by carrying a player?
Yes, because that is exactly, I'm afraid to say, my friend, that is exactly what's happened. Honestly, I'm sorry, but there has to be a time and a realisation that they've dropped one with Gyökeres. They've scouted strikers. They've looked at different options. Yes, they could have had Sesko, and maybe that would have been better. And different players for different opportunities and different setups. They went for Gyökeres, and let's be clear here, they did it for the here and now because he was a little bit older, experienced, and had scored goals for fun in Portugal. The absolute art of scouting and recruitment is knowing that you can take a player from a different league and a different team and he would settle in and immediately hit the ground running. And I'm afraid to say it's been proven week in, week out that, yes, he scored goals in the Portuguese league for Sporting, and yes, occasionally he did it in the Champions League and he even scored a hat-trick against Man City, but they've got this one wrong. It's just not working. Havertz cannot come back soon enough. I love the way that the fans back him. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And, I really admire that and respect that. The players obviously talk him up and back him. But come on, as critics, we have to be objective about this and saying that Victor Gyökeres is not an Arsenal player.
Okay, let me put this to you, Jack. So, John has almost labelled him as a mascot and that he's been carried throughout the season. Was it ever Mikel Arteta's plan to bring Gyökeres in and have that feeling where there's no other striker fit? Because I'm sure when a player who hasn't played in this league before and he's getting his first experience of the Premier League, be he at that age where he's ready or not, wouldn't the plan ideally for Mikel Arteta have been, right, we've got Kai Havertz, let's start with Havertz, let's hopefully get 2-3-0 up in some of these games, and then I can introduce Victor Gyökeres, and then I can ease him in. But he's just having to be thrown in.
I'm sure that was his plan, but you're speaking about him as if he's like an 18-year-old they brought in from the academy. They've gone out, like John said, a more experienced player. They've spent big money on him. They've had this itch they've wanted to scratch with a striker for such a long time. To get that in, this is the final piece, this will take us on. That was the commentary last year, but it was also coming from Arteta as well, going, we know this is what we need. We need that figure, we need some more depth. They needed someone that could come in, puff their chest out and go, right, oh, you need someone to get you over the line, I'll do that now. And he just hasn't he's looked like he's been playing with the weight of being that person on him the whole time and just hasn't got the character or the ability to shift that. But I also think it says everything about this Arsenal squad, this Arsenal team, that despite that, they are going to win the title. And even if there's anxiety about that, I mean, how good that they can do it with 10 men. That's the one thing they can boast about.
I think to me, one of the interesting things about this is that clearly in the last 2 years, Arteta hasn't looked like he wanted to have a good old-fashioned number 9, right? Like Arsenal, actually a bit like City before Haaland, is they played their best football without, either with Gabriel Jesus, who's not really an old-fashioned number 9, or with Havertz, or with a different player. I think Mourinho's actually done really well when he's been up there. And yet for years, Arteta's been hammered by people from the outside saying, why don't you sign a number 9? Why don't you sign a number 9? Why don't you sign a number 9? And so he finally goes into the market, spends a lot of money on a good old-fashioned number 9 who's meant to be there to run the channels and win headers and do that. And it's rubbish. It's terrible. It almost makes me think, this is why managers shouldn't listen to the outside. This is why managers shouldn't listen to people on Twitter telling you what